Since we were young, many of us grew up hearing that heaven is simply that place of eternal rest, reserved for those who lived in obedience and faith, where supreme peace and true glory reign. This view of heaven as a unique destination full of promises is widely disseminated in sermons and religious teachings. But there is something few people know. The Bible, in its sacred texts, does not speak of just one heaven, but rather three distinct heavens. And the most intriguing part of this, each of these heavens has a specific function in the great divine plan. By understanding this revelation, your way of seeing heaven, life, and even your spiritual purpose will be profoundly transformed. Now, a troubling question arises. Why does almost no one mention this crucial information? Why does this knowledge, which could open the eyes of so many, remain silent within churches and is rarely addressed in depth? There is a reason behind this, and you will clearly understand it throughout this video. What I am going to present to you here is not just an explanation of the three heavens, but a detailed analysis of how they connect to God's plan for humanity and the impact this has on your spiritual life. Furthermore, there is something even more important. There is a specific secret about the third heaven, a detail that few dare to mention, and I will reveal it to you at the end of this video. So get ready, because we will not only explore the mysteries of the three heavens mentioned in the Bible, but we will also understand why this essential truth has been hidden and what the impact of this revelation is on your faith journey. Without further delay, let's begin to uncover the three heavens mentioned in the scriptures and discover why this knowledge is so vital for your spiritual life. Most people believe that heaven is just a single and definitive place, but the Bible goes far beyond this simplified view. In fact, in various passages of the scriptures, we find mention of three distinct heavens, each playing a fundamental role within the divine plan. However, why should we care to understand these heavens? What is the relevance of this to our lives? The answer is deeper than it seems. When we understand the existence of these three heavens, we begin to see that God's plan is infinitely broader than we imagined, involving both physical and spiritual dimensions. This understanding can completely transform our perspective on life and eternity, as well as help us better face the spiritual battles we live daily. Think of it like someone trying to reach an unknown destination. Without the correct map, this person might get lost or never reach the desired place. The heavens mentioned in the Bible function like this map, a crucial key to understanding our purpose and walking towards the spiritual destination that God has prepared for us. If we do not know how to correctly interpret each of these heavens, we risk not perceiving the signs God gives us and not understanding how spiritual dimensions directly impact our daily lives. Have you ever imagined that the challenges you face, the spiritual difficulties, and even the blessings you receive could be deeply connected with these celestial dimensions? In 2 Corinthians 12:2-4, the Apostle Paul offers us a fascinating clue by mentioning a supernatural experience. He speaks about being caught up to the third heaven, describing this event in an almost indescribable way. He writes, "I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows." Paul reports that upon reaching the third heaven, he heard inexpressible words, things so profound that man was not permitted to express them. This account shows us that we are not dealing with something that can be explained only in physical or geographical terms, but rather with an elevated spiritual dimension that is incomprehensible to the human mind. By understanding the depth of this experience, we can begin to see that each of the three heavens contains a spiritual richness that goes beyond what is visible and tangible. But what does this mean for us today? What is the connection between these three heavens and our daily lives? This is exactly what we are going to explore from now on. We will begin by understanding the first heaven, the one that reveals the physical dimension that we all know and experience, but which we often do not fully comprehend. This heaven is what we see when we look up during the day, with the shining sun, or at night, when the moon and stars illuminate the firmament. It is the space where clouds form, where birds fly, and where weather phenomena occur. In simple terms, the first heaven is the atmosphere that surrounds the earth, providing essential conditions for life. Now, think of the first heaven as a kind of protective shield that God created to sustain human existence. It acts like the roof of a house, protecting us from external dangers such as radiation and objects coming from space. Without this protective layer, life on Earth would be impossible. However, although it is essential for our survival, it is not our final destination. It is only a part of the great divine plan. Genesis 1:8 tells us, "And God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening and there was morning, the second day." This verse shows us that the first heaven is not a product of chance, but a deliberate and perfect creation of God designed to keep life in balance. It is impressive to think that every detail of this physical heaven, from the light of the stars to the gentle breeze we feel on our faces, is part of something much greater. Nothing is there by chance. Everything was placed with a divine purpose. And despite all the beauty and complexity of the first heaven, it is only the initial layer. There is much more above it. The first heaven is just the starting point for us to understand the higher dimensions that the Bible mentions. Now, an important question arises. If the first heaven is so fundamental and so incredibly designed, how does it connect to the other heavens mentioned in the scriptures? What is the relationship between the heaven we see with our eyes and the spiritual heavens that Paul described in his vision? This is exactly what we will explore in the next moments. Get ready, because what you will discover about the second heaven will completely change your understanding of the spiritual battles we face. And as I mentioned, at the end of this video, you will understand why this information is rarely preached and how it can profoundly impact your life. Now, let's enter a much deeper dimension, the second heaven, the one that does not belong to the physical world, but to the spiritual realm. This heaven is invisible to our human eyes, but its influences are felt daily in our lives in ways that we often do not fully understand. Here, in this spiritual domain, cosmic battles are constantly fought between angelic and demonic forces. It is the space where divine will manifests, but also where evil tries to exert its power. Although we cannot see or touch this dimension, it directly affects our choices, thoughts, and even the circumstances we face in the physical world. Every inner struggle, every inexplicable difficulty or trial often has roots in this invisible realm. You can think of this second heaven as the hidden backdrop of a complex system. Imagine you are playing a video game. On the screen, you only see what is happening at that moment, the levels, the challenges, and the enemies. However, behind that, there is a sophisticated system of rules and mechanics created by the programmers that determines everything that happens in the game, even if you do not perceive it directly. In the same way, the second heaven is this hidden spiritual layer that exerts direct influence over the reality we experience. Although we do not see it, it is there, operating and interfering in the physical world. It is in this domain that angels battle against evil powers, and these battles reflect in our daily lives, from our difficulties to our spiritual victories. Ephesians 6:12 gives us a clear view of this spiritual war, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. This verse not only describes the type of forces we are fighting against, but also reveals where these battles take place, in the second heaven. It invites us to understand that our existence goes far beyond what is visible. What we face here on earth is not just a physical struggle. There is a spiritual war constantly happening on a much larger level, and each of us is part of this battle, even without realizing it. If we stop to reflect, we realize that many situations that seem inexplicable to us, from seemingly uncontrollable temptations to trials that test our limits, may be the direct result of what happens in this spiritual realm. The second heaven is an invisible battlefield where both the forces of good and evil operate, continuously influencing our lives. And this is something most people ignore because they are focused only on what they see, without realizing that a much broader reality is happening around them. Now, the most impressive thing of all is what happens when we overcome these spiritual battles. If the second heaven is the place where invisible struggles are fought, what awaits us beyond it? What happens when we win these battles and truly connect with the divine plan? The answer lies in the third heaven, an even higher dimension that holds surprising secrets about our spiritual destiny. Get ready, because in the next step, we will explore what Paul called paradise, a revelation that can change everything you believe about spiritual life. And remember, there is a reason why this information is rarely preached, and by discovering what is in the third heaven, you will understand why this truth has been kept hidden for so long. Now we come to the third heaven, the most sublime of all, the heaven of God's direct presence. Unlike the first heaven, which is physical, and the second, where spiritual battles occur, the third heaven is the place where God's eternal glory is fully manifested. This is not just a place of rest or a symbol of reward. It is the center of God's perfect will, where His holiness not only exists, but absolutely dominates. Here, God's love is not just felt spiritually, it involves, fills, and transforms everything that resides there. It is an environment so glorious and indescribable that it surpasses any human understanding or language. This third heaven is not just an abstract concept or a distant idea, but a concrete promise from God for those who trust in Him and persevere in faith. It is the final destination, the place of eternal communion, where there is no pain, suffering, or darkness, but only peace, joy, and fullness. Imagine that the third heaven is like a glorious movie theater, the most splendid one you can imagine, designed with impeccable details, where every element reflects perfection and beauty. However, there is something very special. It is not a place accessible to just anyone. Only those who have accepted the divine invitation through faith in Jesus Christ will be able to cross the doors of this majestic hall and experience the glory reserved for the elect. This invitation is not something that is earned through earthly merits, but rather through the sincere surrender of the heart and the acceptance of Christ's sacrifice. The third heaven is the ultimate realization of creation's purpose, where everything makes sense, where every tear is wiped away, and every wound is healed in God's presence. The Bible offers us a glimpse of this grandeur in Revelation 21:2, where the Apostle John writes, "I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband." This passage reveals to us that the third heaven is not just a distant or inaccessible place, but the dwelling of God with His people, a new reality where He will eternally inhabit with those who love Him. Have you ever imagined what it will be like to walk alongside God, to feel His love in such a real and tangible way that every doubt dissolves, every wound is healed, and every desire is fully satisfied? This is the third heaven, a place where humanity finds its eternal purpose, where the fullness of life is finally achieved. However, there is a question we cannot ignore. Why is this information not widely preached or discussed in churches? Why does this knowledge, so essential to faith and spiritual life, seem to be hidden? The answer lies in the interconnection of the three heavens and the profound impact this revelation can have on our understanding of life, death, and the divine purpose. The three heavens are not isolated realities. They are part of a larger and perfectly connected plan. The first heaven represents the physical world we experience daily, the blue sky, the stars at night, and the visible work of divine creation. The second heaven, in turn, is the spiritual dimension where invisible battles are fought, directly influencing our lives and our destiny. And finally, the third heaven is the ultimate dwelling of God, the place where everything converges and is completed, where the final victory is achieved and eternity is lived in communion with Him. If we think of these heavens as progressive levels of a game, we realize that each level prepares and empowers us for the next. At the first level, we learn the basics of existence, living in the physical world and understanding creation. At the second, we face spiritual challenges that strengthen us, shaping our character and our faith. And finally, at the third level, we achieve the supreme reward, full communion with God, the definitive victory over evil, and the realization of everything we were created to be. Each level, although different in purpose, is connected, leading us to the final purpose of existence, eternity with God in the third heaven. Why don't we hear more about this? Why are such important themes as the three heavens rarely preached or discussed? The answer lies in something deeply rooted in today's society. We live in an age where materialism and the pursuit of the immediate dominate our attention. The world around us constantly teaches us to value only what we can see, touch, and measure, as if the spiritual reality did not exist or did not matter. In this context, talking about the three heavens and recognizing that there is an active spiritual dimension where invisible battles are fought and an eternal destiny awaits us becomes something uncomfortable. This type of truth directly challenges the secular system that keeps us busy, distracted, and disconnected from what really matters, the eternal purpose that God has for each of us. The idea that there is an invisible world where spiritual forces are in constant conflict forces us to reflect on the life we are leading. When you understand that your existence goes beyond what is visible and immediate, that there is a greater divine plan involving every aspect of your life, you begin to question your priorities. Suddenly, what seemed important, the material success, social recognition, earthly achievements, loses part of its shine. You realize that there is something much greater at stake, eternity and the purpose for which we were created. And this is exactly the reason why these truths are not at the center of the messages we hear today. They require us to awaken, to see beyond the physical world, and to begin seeking the true meaning of our existence, living according to God's plan in all areas of our lives. In this video, we explored one of the most fascinating and revealing subjects of the Bible, the three heavens. Each of them plays a crucial role in the divine plan and teaches us profound lessons about who we are and what our purpose is. Now I invite you to take one more step on this spiritual journey. Subscribe to our channel, Código Bíblico, to continue learning about biblical mysteries like this one. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, family, or anyone you believe needs to hear this message. Imagine how many lives can be transformed by understanding the importance of the three heavens and the impact this truth can have on their faith journeys. And before we conclude, leave your opinion in the comments. Which of the three heavens impacted you the most? The first heaven, which reveals the beauty and perfection of divine creation. The second heaven, where invisible spiritual battles happen and directly affect our lives. Or the third heaven, the final destination, where God dwells and where we will find eternal fulfillment. Your participation is very important to us, and together we can help spread this message and lead more people to know the true divine purpose. In closing, I want to thank you for joining us on this spiritual journey. I hope this video has brought a new perspective to your life and inspired you to seek God's truth more deeply. And remember, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. These simple actions help us bring this message to more people and are part of the mission to spread biblical knowledge. Until next time, when we will continue to explore together the mysteries of the Scriptures and uncover even more about God's will for our lives. May God bless you greatly.